Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
I look forward to the opportunity to serve the group.
I spent the first month or so looking at all the data and taking stock.
When I see Chandra, I see this software man with an extraordinary sense of finance and direction.
Whatever he does, he would think well with respect to every stakeholder.
I was just completely overwhelmed by the level of support I got from within the group as well as from corporate India.
He is known for running marathons, but it's just been a year since he occupied the corner office at Bombay House. So it hasn't really been a marathon. However, it has been an eventful year, to say the least, for N. Chandrasekaran as the chairman of Tata Sons. What are the hits, what are the misses, and what is the unfinished agenda? We will discuss all of that with some of the finest minds who worked with the Tata Group and neutral observers who know the conglomerate inside out. Joining us now in this discussion is Mr. S. Ramudurai, the former CEO of TCS, somebody who's actually mentored Chandra in his initial days. He's also, of course, a Tata Group veteran. Mr. V.R. Mehta is a trustee at the Dorabji Tata Trust. We have Zia Modi, one of the legal luminaries. She's, of course, with AZB Partners. And we also have Ananta Narayan of Credit Suisse, who wrote a big report early on in the tenure of Chandra, essentially looking at what is the agenda going to be under Chandra, what needs to be done, and what can be done. Thanks very much, all of you, for being with us here on this show. Let's just set this up, and let me begin with you, Mr. Ramudurai. We've spoken with you over the last 1 year at different points. As you have seen the group under Chandra over the last 1 year, how would you rate the first year for the group under Chandra overall?
My own submission is absolutely focused on the job that needs to be done. He has built a great team and he will enhance the team as he looks at the future. And finally, the outcomes will determine whether he is satisfying the customers, namely the shareholders and all the stakeholders.
Okay. One of the big things which when I sort of spoke to a variety of people came across was that the Tata brand equity, which had suffered quite a bit because of the open fight before Chandra came in, has been now restored to its former glory. I mean, do you feel that when you look at the group and, the universe in which it operates?
Yes, the brand is definitely visible. The brand, what it stood for, what it stands for, is beginning to get accelerated. But I think brands are built not just by the name, brands are built by performance and the expectations which the customers want. The customer experience which Chandra is extremely good at, and that's what TCS grounding gave us, is absolutely, are we delighting the customers? Are you exceeding the expectations of the customers on a continuous sustainable basis? That will be the single most critical element of how the brands are built, and he's good at that.
Right. Let me come to you, Zia Modi. So we all know, and we've been highlighting this all day in terms of what all has Chandra accomplished, be it, selling off the mobile business, fixing the entire telecom business really by a bunch of things, Tata Motors, Tata Steel, merger of the European business with ThyssenKrupp, or Tata Communications. We've seen action, and we all recognize that. But do you think now it is, maybe with the exception of the Mundra plant, which needs to be fixed, and that lies in Tata Power, it's basically more about getting more efficiency in the group, more about focusing on return ratios?
I think so. I think that is certainly the sense that the market has. The stocks are doing well. You look at his baby TCS with an approximate $6 trillion market cap. So I think he's looking to see how to basically cut the flab, cut the inefficiency, improve a sharper decision making. And I think very good in empowering the leaders of the various operating businesses. Wants them to take accountability, but understands that in order to do that, they need to be empowered as well. So I think he's getting that mix. And of course, brought in new people that he feels comfortable with.
Mr. Mehta, let me come across to you now. How do the trusts see the performance of N. Chandrasekaran in the last 1 year?
Okay. Let me first make a statement that from the trust, we have a broad understanding of how the group's performance is, but we have no direct day-to-day interaction with them, with the Tata Sons. So in that sense, my observations are, by their very nature, they are very broad. Also, to my mind, a big conglomerate and an organization such as Tata's, where there's, by sheer size, there's bound to be some inertia. The results do take time to show up. So what we can see today, or what we can assess today, is only the trends that we see. And every institution has the capacity to improve at every stage. There's no stage at which you can say that the institution has reached a stage where it has already reached its final destination. So having said all this, I would like to state that the main concern of the trusts has been the performance of the operating companies.
Right.
And we were worried when this unfortunate saga unfolded in October 2016,
right,
that the profits of the operating companies other than TCS and the JLR, the profits of the other companies were either stagnant or they were making losses. And that was a cause for major worry of the trust.
So is that worry lesser now, Mr. Mehta?
Dividends.
Yeah.
Yes, certainly, I'm coming to that. So the trust dividend is dependent on that, and all our philanthropic activities are then dependent on the dividend that we get from the trusts, from the Tata Sons. And today, we definitely see a trend where the results are very encouraging.
Fair enough.
We see that Mr. Chandra.
Let me get a quick word in from Ananthan. I got the point, Mr. Mehta. So things certainly have improved for the better, and the performance has been satisfactory, as you say. Anantha, let me come to you. I mean, you wrote that magnum opus in terms of, it was almost a blueprint for what the markets really expected of, Chandra at the helm of Tata Sons. How much of that has been accomplished, and what are the big things which are remaining according to you?
So magnum opus, I'm not sure if we can define it as one, but anyway, thanks Prashant for having me here. See, I think from our perspective, we could distill Chandra's strategy into sort of four broad areas. The first is, the ROE of the group was subpar in many cases. And so about 60 of the companies have ROE less than 10%. So that was obviously a big target area for Chandra, especially starting with the big companies to begin off with. The second was, the domestic consumption part of the entire Tata group is actually pretty small. It's below 10% if you exclude the financials. And that is an area of significant growth that we can expect in India over the next few years. The third part was, essentially trying to simplify some of the cross-holdings. There are multiple companies operating in the same area, so see whether, some of that can be combined. And the fourth area was there are some, pieces like financial services, for example, or maybe even retail, where probably the Tata Group can step up its presence significantly. So 1 year is really a short time, but I think what he's really achieved is fixing some of the problems in the larger companies. With the exception of maybe Tata Power, we've seen a lot of activity around Tata Motors, Tata Steel, Tata Tele. I thought was a pretty difficult decision to take, which he has taken. We've seen some activity in the simplification, and I think where we'll hopefully hear more news over the next few years is essentially in the remaining two areas.
So is there the Tata Power, the Mundra thing, do you expect resolution sometime this year, 2018? That is the other sort of big one-time fix, if I may use that term.
Yeah, so so basically, if you look at the top, the 5 large companies, right? So TCS, I think he's done a great job in transitioning that. Tata Motors, the domestic CV business has started doing well. There's obviously work in progress. Tata Steel, there's been a lot of activity, both internationally and domestically. Tata Tele is now out of the picture. So that leaves Tata Power. Now, I think that is probably the most difficult to fix, among all the 5. So I don't really know, what he has in mind or what the timeline of that could be. But at least, he's got the right people. So Banmali sort of re-enters the Tata Group. He's a very solid person as well. So hopefully there will be some resolution soon there.
Okay. On that note, allow me to take a very quick break. Ananta, Mr. Mehta, Mr. Ramodurai, Zia Modi, allow me to take a very quick break here. We come back to all of you in just a bit, and we continue our discussion on Chandra's first year at Tata Sons. We leave you with IT stalwart N.R. Murthy and his comments about Chandra's first year in office. Listen in, take a break, be back.
I would say that whatever he does, he would think well with respect to every stakeholder. He would ask the question, will this decision of mine enhance respect for me and for the Tata Group? And therefore, I have no doubt at all that whatever he does, as I have seen him do when he was leading TCS, would be to the best of the stakeholders.
Welcome back. We're discussing N. Chandrasekaran's the first year, the last 1 year at Tata, at the helm of Tata Sons. We have a special panel decoding the subject for us. Zia Modi is with us. Mr. Ramodurai is with us. We have Ananta Narayan, and we have Mr. V.R. Mehta. Thanks very much, all of you, for staying with us. Ma'am, let me come to you. Do you, and you must interact with a fair number of Tata Group companies regularly, with the new people who Chandra has brought into the group, not just at the group level but also at company-specific levels. Do you see any change, more aggression maybe, in the way the group or the group companies themselves are working?
I think, well, the message has gone out from Central Command in the sense of what is the messaging that Chandra has sent out. I think we've seen some interesting new arrivals that the market knows about. Banmali is back. Saurav is, of course, taking a very active role across all the companies, as he should. There's a new general counsel, Shuva, who is again making his impact felt. At the operating level, I think that, and I don't know for sure, but the sense I get is that there seems to be more communication, coordination, possibly a lot more discussion, and making sure that Sons and the operating companies are probably aligned on strategy. The Sons has been ready to put its money on the line and write checks. And I think that, the operating companies are seeing the support coming in terms of putting your money where your mouth is.
Ma'am, taking that point forward, I mean, as mentioned, maybe more aggression, there is this feeling that Tata Group is going to be a lot more acquisitive. We're hearing what Tata Steel is doing, allegedly one of the top bidders for a couple of steel assets out there. Many have made the comparison with what they did with Chorus acquisition many years back. I mean, is that a fair comparison that on that specific transaction, potential transaction, and generally, what are your thoughts on acquisitions and how the group may approach it from here?
I think, it's each case has its own story, right? So if you're looking at what they are at least proposing to do, according to what Chandra has said to the press, there is I think, definitely a strategy to divest non-core. So that has come out publicly. And on the other hand, there is not a hesitation to bid for good assets as well, as in the steel sector, and maybe more than the steel sector, depending on the opportunities that come out. So I don't think it's one general strategy. I think the house is nimble, and where they see an opportunity to get market share or get good assets at a reasonable price, I'm not sure that they will hesitate. I think they have the ability to raise funds just based on the reputation of the group. And I don't think Chandra will pass on opportunities if he sees that they add value. And on the other hand, there is a distinct approach that, we don't want to be cluttered with things that are not our mainstay. So I'm not sure it's just acquire. I think it's divest and acquire.
Fair enough. Ananta, in your report, you'd mentioned how consumer-facing businesses should be a priority for the group. Has that been done? Do you see that happening? I mean, for the stock markets, it's a big area of interest as well.
Yeah, no, so I think firstly, there's no doubt that that will be in a focus area for the group. That is the one single area that all foreign investors are excited about in India over the next several years. And as I mentioned, if you exclude financial services, that area just represents about 10% of the group's turnover, which is really low. But again, we've just had 1 year with Chandra at the helm, right? And to use an analogy which probably is being overused today, we've just covered the first few kilometers of a marathon. So he obviously would have had to prioritize what his objectives are in the first year. And I think a greater focus has probably been spent in correcting some of the problems in the larger companies. And we discussed some of that. So there may be something happening in the background with the domestic consumption theme. We don't know that yet. But I'm sure it's a matter of time before we'll probably hear more from him on a strategy around that area.
Acquisitions maybe, Ananta, in that space?
So yeah, I think it's it's a possibility. So I don't think the group has ever shied away from acquisitions. And in areas which are a big focus area, I think that's a possibility.
And generally, there is this feeling that profitability levels across group companies will go up. With what he did at TCS, he'd bring that same focus here as well across group companies. Is that asking for too much? Because these are separate companies, large companies in their own right with their own managements.
No, see, I don't think so. And again, I gave you the statistic about the ROE, right? 60 companies have ROE less than 10%. If you take the top 10, Tata Group companies, only 4 of them have ROE greater than 15%. Now, some of them have been impacted, because of cyclical issues. Some of them have probably been impacted because of, historical actions that were taken. But that's clearly suboptimal. And someone like Chandra, who's run TCS, who's extremely focused on shareholder returns, is bound to identify, I think, areas where improvements can be made. So I don't think it's asking for too much. It's not going to happen overnight. It might take some time. But I think clearly over the next few years, we should see a significant improvement in the ROE of the group.
Okay, that'll be music to the stock markets and the financial markets in general. Mr. Ramodarai, as I wrap this up, I want to give you the last word. According to you, any specific business segment or company which according to you, Chandra needs to focus on in 2018 and beyond?
I always feel every company has its own set of challenges. If you take the power business, the Mundra and the coal issue has to be sorted out. That's very clearly articulated. If you take the consolidation in the steel business with the European steel operations, with the Tata Steel, and the growth of Tata Steel with the infrastructure funding increased by the government of India, all these are important milestones that need to be achieved. To me, the journey, once you have done the structuring or the restructuring or the focus or the raising the bar has been done, performance is what determines. So to me, irrespective of the individual companies, performance and like I said, the cash generation and the acceleration in the growth vis-a-vis the industry is absolutely critical. If you are a brand, if you are a $100 billion corporation, beyond the $100 billion, it is the cash and the profitability of each of the companies. Those are the things which I would say we need to see as we go into the future.
Okay, that is well put. Mr. Ramadurai, Mr. Mehta, Ananta, Zia Modi, thank you very much, all of you, for being with us here, helping us understand the last 1 year under Chandra and what needs to be done. With that, it's a wrap on this special coverage of 1 year event Chandra as Tata Sons chairman. We leave you with thoughts of Vallabh Bhansali of Enam Securities, who we spoke with earlier in the day. Thanks very much for watching.
I think it's an exemplary case of an uncluttered mind. I think in India we haven't seen many minds of this quality. When I see Chandra, I see this software man with an extraordinary sense of finance and direction. The fact that he ran a large empire in terms of people employed was less of a qualification, but he took software solutions to hundreds of clients around the world and believed in those solutions, and that's what he has brought to his job.